when it gotta roll up and out. See you from afar, got my thoughts in the sky. Where we used to kiss, sunshine, shit, and why? You gotta call me every day, pretend you my baby. I see more real out there lately, it's crazy. Yeah, we could be the same as we claiming this kingdom shit and keep it tame. Come on, baby girl, we're not the same. Two different speeds, but we keep it one lane. Yeah, what goes around comes around. Keep 100, y'all. Do this for my soul like a dawn. Put the stereo on.
Put your hands in the air, we'll be alright. Hey. Oh, yeah. You keep messing up my mind, but I love your style. You know I
put the place up. Put my face up.
Hello and welcome to a special Tuesday edition of Esports Weekly. This week we're going to be kind of doing a preview overall of what we expect for this fall split with a little bit of a recap of some of the action that we got to see last week. My name is William Newberry, also known as Gormizer, and joining me here on the desk is going to be Evan, Rain Day Rainer, as well as Nick Keo. It's going to be, I mean, it's unfortunate for you. You didn't used to have to get up this early for this.
Yeah, I know. It's
yeah.
It
you
was
feeling
not
it
a
today?
Monday, right? So I can't say that, right? You know, we had our nice little day off.
It's kind of a Monday.
For all intents and purposes, it is Monday, and I think I should be judged as such.
As such. Nick is in his Monday form. I'm actually kind of in my Sunday best, but it's after the afternoon of Sunday to where it's not really my best anymore, and I'm a little lazy. I've eaten a big meal, and so I'm kind of there. We're going to warm up, though. We are definitely going to warm up throughout the show. We've got a lot to talk about.
It's been about 30, 40 minutes sitting in a car warming up on the way here with the way things went. It was a very rough morning for me to get to work.
A little bit of traffic,
It was I got here, what, like
Atlanta
7 minutes before we were technically supposed to be live, and it was just like, I don't even know what's going on. There was a wreck, and it stopped the entirety of the road for like 20 minutes.
Oh, no.
If not more. There might still be people sitting there.
There are not a lot of things in this world that make me think people are stupid aside from traffic.
Hey, looks like a Monday, talks like a Monday, walks like a Monday, must be a Monday.
Must be a Monday,
even
though it's
Tuesday. Call it Tuesday.
It's the secret we have. But last Monday, we actually did get to go through the console league, and we're actually going to go a little bit lighter on this just for anyone who is a huge console fan watching, because we will be covering a lot more of it during the pre-show and during the post-show for console league when we do that next Monday.
Get ready for that.
We have a little bit to talk about, but we're going to try to keep it a little lighter.
Yeah, console was a great, I think, startup for seeing what ended up happening. There was a lot of results we were, I think, anticipating that did take place, but also a couple of surprises. Definitely seeing Koga for the first time this week when he wasn't actually allowed. Well, that was a surprise.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing to look out for is just the overall change, and notice that it is the console league now instead of the console series. It's not going to operate like most of the global series and console series that you're used to. They're going to be the 4 teams picked up for each of these regions that are going to go at each other every week to give a little bit more consistent competition and I think a better determination overall of who is going to be the best and who deserves to qualify.
So one of the things you had actually just mentioned was the fact that Koga was played, and I kind of want to get your thoughts. I mean, we only get to see one real big game with him.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we won't see him at all in the PPL this week. He won't be available till next week. But do you have any flavor thoughts from just that one game you got to see?
Well, I know we're going to talk a little bit about Koga later on, so I don't want to say too much, but we saw Master of Arms in action in a competitive environment, and it looked good. I mean, it looked pretty devastating, albeit part of the devastation is you bring a gun to a knife fight and no one's expecting the gun because Koga wasn't available. So I can't tell how much was it were they caught off guard or was it actually that good.
It's a funny story. We got Swiper just kind of eloping to North America officially.
Bringing a champion with
play,
him.
Right? It's just like this
Smuggling.
complete outlaw story. And you look at the tracking that console players have kind of become known for, and you look at how effective that can be. Earlier in that clip, absolutely shredding through a Makoa shield, just landing those hits and giving you ammo. So a lot can be done with this. Swiper the one, an incredible player who was able to accomplish a lot with it, albeit illegally early.
Albeit illegally.
Well, and Swiper is actually one of the players we wanted to talk about if we are going to delve into anyone.
I wonder if he feels
mentioned
guilty
him
right now. Just watching
so
this.
many
Probably
times over Lance being like, okay, well, for Flashpoint, he's the essential, he's the member that you need to talk about because he's not here. And now he's in North America.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a big moment for Flashpoint here as they move on to see if they can get that emotional momentum back. Every time they were at LAN, conversations around Swiper took place, videos about Swiper took place, tweets about Swiper. Swiper was never there. These guys loved Swiper, and Swiper, I think, when you look at him and his impact on this team, is not going to easily be removed. Maybe from a skill base, sure, but from a mental, from a emotional, from a camaraderie standpoint, I think it's going to be a tough one for them to get over.
They've come over the hill once before, and I think they have used that as fuel, so hopefully they can just do it again here.
Yeah, there's a lot that I feel the console boys, specifically now in North America, is going to be changing up with the addition of Swiper in that region.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of excited to see how these teams are going to be going. But again, we're going to be getting into, I want to say, more of the meat of console as we go into next week when we watch all the console games. And next time, hopefully, we'll have Xbox being able to be shown, as last week was pretty much all PS4. But speaking of, I guess, P anagrams, we're also going to be going to PPL, which is, that was not necessarily the best transition, but this is a great Tuesday morning as things go. Hey,
Speaking of
Tyler came through and said,
speaking of urine,
don't we all? But either way, we've been able to come through. A lot of roster swaps has happened, which I think we'll go through, I want to say, more in depth. But I think overall we had one in NA with SK, and then pretty much everybody in Europe except for Na'Vi and Fnatic decided that they were done with their teams.
Yeah, the PPL is going to be shaking up big time here. And obviously we're going to talk a little bit about the rosters, but, one of the bigger things is that the format now will allow a third team to qualify for the big prize and to be able to be a part of HRX and that road to climb. So for me, this opens up some doors for some teams that didn't have it open in the first couple seasons.
And when you're looking just historically, just at this year even, the top 1 and 2 teams are usually out there by a fair margin.
By a mile,
those two kind of going back and forth. And then the race for kind of like the 3rd place, 4th place, even 5th place sometimes, it can be kind of close with one another. So I think this is going to create a lot of interesting storylines, opportunities, and motivation for a lot of teams because the way it was now with only the top 2 teams qualified, it was very easily after like weeks 1 or 2, if you just lost everything, to kind of throw your hands up and be like, well, this is not my split.
It's not my split, right. And we don't have teams in that position anymore. It's going to be a tight contest. I can't wait, to be honest.
Yeah, I think this is actually going to be one of the most interesting splits we've had. Even with 2/3 of the year gone by, I genuinely don't know. You gotta have that feeling of who's going to be 1 and 2. Some of these teams that have been finding success.
Sure.
But that 3rd place spot is a complete wild card, I think, in both regions as of right now with the way things have been going. And SK Gaming is one of the ones that is kind of, I caught my eye with all of that just because they've added 2 new members. Dethroner, someone who was a sub, as well as Pan, who has been around the scene for a long time, either high in ranked games or playing around in the PGS a little bit. And so I'm really curious, what are your guys' thoughts about these 2 new players?
This is the team that has to take third. If they want to stay together, if they don't want a complete roster collapse and Bitey thinking about, which airport does he actually want to work at and maybe changing things up in a bigger way, which you could have said maybe should have happened a few splits ago. I think they need to come in third or second here heading into this split. It is do or die for them, and I like that they brought in somebody comfortable but different into Throner, who they know and have experienced for a while. That'll meld well with the team, and they're taking a risk on Payne because he hasn't been in the PPL before. They know he's talented, but how will he mesh with Invocal? I don't know. Getting rid of Shades, though, getting rid, obviously, of Wardoom retiring and Vex going to G2, that was a good move overall. Wardoom a great player, but his heart didn't seem to be into it towards the end of it.
I think you can say that about both players, right? Shades, that's kind of the reason he took the break the first time, right? And once you sort of do that once, I think you're susceptible to it having happened again. Both of these players, while I don't think they're going to be offering a ton of leadership, I do think they're going to have a lot of that passion, drive to win. Dethroner comes from Envious. He's been around a culture of winning before. Hopefully he can bring something to the table.
Yeah.
There's a lot, I want to say, that's on the line for these guys, like you said. If they don't start winning some games, then you're looking at a complete reset, maybe kind of Elven pathing it as well, because Virtus Pro, as it comes into it,
do you even want to Elven path it?
New roster
do you even
with the way
want?
things have been going.
What does that get you?
Very rough to be signed to VP.
Well, VP is the roster. I know we might be jumping ahead or behind, but this VP's on the table. VP has been through such an interesting dynamic, picking up Perdo and Sheepa. It's 3 out of the 5 D69 members back together again. Elven Path had criticized that land, Perdo, saying he was over the hill, and now he's on his team? Elven Path jumped over the hill with him? Is that what just went down?
Maybe.
I mean, you talk about the fact that they have 3 out of 5 members. It's possible they have 4 out of 5 because Elven Path's ego counts for 2 people. But I think that they need to have this be something that means third place or higher. If it doesn't, I am very scared about the future of Virtus Pro. This feels like they're grasping at straws to me, and I know Perdo and Sheepa couldn't find their place in NIP, Nick, but to me, this feels like a last-ditch effort.
Yeah, and I think they might run into some of the same problems, and if they do, then it kind of gives a lot of closure, right, to Gara and Bugsy, or a lot of vindication to, these problems that we were having in the past. They just kind of resurface again around these personalities, right?
Yeah.
So if you take these big names and just sort of take them on that credit and not really looking at the future or maybe what they can achieve together, or maybe there's a new fire lit under their butts. I'm not really sure. We'll have to wait and see here. I think it's a very interesting move. The complete opposite of what most people are doing in terms of grabbing new, fresh talent from the PGS guys that haven't won before and are just really hungry for it. So Sheepa and Perdo, it's going to be a really, really fun thing to watch come back together with Elven Path. Does it work out for them?
I hope so.
Wait and see.
I hope it does. I really do.
It'd be nice to see.
If it doesn't, I'm worried, but I hope it does.
It's been a very rocky path for Virtus Pro, but it's also been a rocky path for some of the other teams. Mouse, I think we'll talk about a little bit later, but NIP in particular, they picked up Digidog, and things looked like they were going to be good, but one of the players that was having a great showcase during the beginning of the summer split that has not found a home is actually Simsaloo. He has not been able to either find a place on NIP, he hasn't gone back to VP, but he was playing phenomenally.
You know what? It's close to, I don't even want to make this reference because I don't want to taint the work that I think Kaepernick is doing for awareness in this country, but he's the closest thing to being blackballed in the PPL that I've seen.
Yeah.
He is a great player. He did extremely well. He started getting NIP wins last season.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when you have momentum, you're finally getting wins, and you haven't in a couple of splits, you say, let's get Digidog from Australia, and we'll move him to Sweden. It's a bit of a stretch when you've already got something that's starting to work for you. And so I'm a little bit dismayed, I think, for NIP personally, because I think when momentum is happening in a sport, you don't quell it. You don't take the guy who's on fire, hit 8 in a row, out and put him on the bench in the championship game.
And I mean, you know, maybe you look at it that way. Maybe you can look at it that if you're Bird, right, you just don't want to take that chance on him, right? You've got so many people that are worried about him. I hope
that's
that
fair.
Maybe he gets forgiven over time.
Yeah.
But I think, Bird, he kind of made the decision that he had to at the time.
Yeah, and it's fair. I'm not going to fault guys for going with what they believe is best. And Digidog, obviously a great player. We know that. Everybody knows that. That's why he's there. But it just does not sit well with me to see a guy who performs, who's a young kid, who makes mistakes, and clearly is good for a team. You know, continue to just lose opportunities for what we can't really say. We can't point to his play and say why. I'm
kind of curious, actually, to get your thoughts real fast just about Koa having moved from Mouse now to NIP, as well as Cruncy being picked up from Clown Fiesta. So 2 quote-unquote new members, although Koa has that PPL experience. Do you think this is going to be another roster that, again, could maybe skyrocket?
I think this is one that could easily take that third place in EU. Depends how everything settles out, obviously. But when you look at Koa, who's already kind of been a pretty stable, pretty staple guy of a team before, who haven't had much success, but he's had so much flexibility that I think he can plug in nearly anywhere, right? So it's about getting rid of, I think, some of those bigger egos, some of those older veterans, right, just to shake things up. And I think that's maybe what NIP needed, right? You don't want to stagnate. They didn't have a great split in the summer or in the spring.
Let's talk about what Bird, captain, because you mentioned that, has felt comfortable with in the past. It has been the most comfortable roster for him, playing with guys who are of a veteran-type nature, who have known the game. Koa is a 27-year-old guy. He's already had very serious personal issues he's climbed over in his life. He's had very serious roster issues playing on a team that's been broken and defeated, still finding success, still filling in that triple DPS role like we've seen Phoenix do, albeit not as good, but still doing it very well for the level Mouse Sports was playing at. So I think Bird feels really comfortable bringing in a guy like that. I think it sits right in his rhythm. Bird is a relatively calm, stable, mature dude, and I think that he bringing people in who fit that rhythm for him is going to help his team's morale, at least, even if we don't see the play jump to first tier.
We always call Bird like the cerebral player, so I expect a lot coming from him, at least as terms as rosters go, being able to pick up players. But one of the other rosters, and I think the final roster that really is going to leave the note, is someone who hasn't actually changed, but it's Fnatic. Every single time they haven't changed yet, but every single LAN they come to, they falter. Every single online match they come to, they just stomp. And they don't seem to have a middle ground.
I'm at the point where I say, what does it even matter? Why are we watching Fnatic's regular season games? And I mean this with respect, but I also mean this with seriousness. What does it matter if you go 8-0, you go undefeated 2-3 seasons in a row, and you never pick up the LAN victory that you want? Sure, you get the spring finals, but you don't get the full finals with all the international teams. You go home defeated. You're crying more than the episode of The Bachelorette out there. And I swear to God, I watched that show enough to know that tears are flowing more and more in this roster specifically at LAN than any other team I've seen in my history of Paladins esports. So I got to say, guys, what are we looking for? What can they redeem in this regular season?
I think try and go 0-8, but still get like qualified somehow.
8-0, you mean? Oh, 0-8.
Just
lose,
just
outrageously
everything,
lose.
and then see what happens at LAN. Take
I mean,
all the pressure off.
It kind of makes sense, if you win everything, but then you can't win the LAN, lose everything, and then you win LAN, right?
It is all about LAN.
Theoretically.
That's who gets remembered. That's going to get the lion's share of the prize pool at the end of the day. They do that because they came from that, right? A lot of those guys have won a big title. And this year has just kind of been about the choke at LAN. It's been about, how incredible that they've been online. And maybe it does take Na'Vi beating them online. They're not going to let that happen, but Na'Vi looks like they're getting closer and closer to the point where they might not have a choice.
Yeah. Changes need to, changes are upstream, I'll tell you that, because at this point, you lose your HRX finals, you lose the both Masters finals, you lose to the same team over and over and over again, you lose in Vegas. I don't know how much more they can take as a roster and stay together without saying something seriously needs to adjust.
Well, I know Fnatic's going to be playing in the first game today up against NIP, but I think they actually are playing against Na'Vi for the first time, at least for this split, on Thursday. So I'm kind of interested to see how that set's going to be going. But that's going to be, first seed, second seed going up against each other. Now that we have the third seed making a difference, that third place spot being something that matters to these bottom three teams that every single time get the short end of the stick, do you guys have a team right now that you're thinking this is going to be the team that is able to sneak that third place spot?
I think in NA it could be close. I think it's not going to be much sneaking for NIP and EU. I think they should be able to take it pretty solidly. There's really nothing in my mind that's making me think otherwise. For NA, I hope it's close. I could see it being between all three of Splice, Renegades, and SK.
I would like for it to be SK because they finally made, one of those bigger changes where they got rid of two people at the same time instead of like one little switch. I think it'd be a great story if Splice were able to do it. Take those youngsters, keep the roster together, and then climb into that third spot to hit LAN. I mean, that would be the PGS dream, right? I think the Renegades are my one that I would say we all kind of know they've been third every single time, but there's just the energy. I'm going to have to wait and see. I don't know if I would predict him to get third. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't.
It's about how they react to actually deserving it this time, right? Not making it here on a technicality or somebody's visa issues or something like that.
That's right.
Because they've done a lot of that, and they got a lot of LAN experience through that. But it's never like they kind of always know that when they get here, right, it's not our time to kick ass, right? We didn't actually earn our way here. Now they have a chance to earn their way here. And, when you think about it, it's the same exact spot that they've been in before, right? But we'll have to see if that mentality shift does anything for them.
I don't think you could get anything better for a region than being able to say, hey, who's going to be third place? Like, not first, not second, but just the middle of the pack, and genuinely having no idea because the rest of the competition is that good. I'm kind of leaning, I want to say more towards Splice personally, but I think that might just be a storyline bias for me more than anything, just because those guys were doing really well at the end of the summer split. But that actually does lead into, you have 3 teams from each region, plus every team around the world in the PGS that is going to qualify to come here to then qualify for HRX.
Yeah.
Who do you think can win it? This is going to be a prediction. Like right now, you've not seen anything from 1.4 in the PPL. You haven't seen any of these teams play with their new rosters. Who has the potential to take it?
All right, I'll go first.
Are you going with the easy answer?
Now, here's the thing. I'm going to go with an EU and an NA representative, because if I say my NA representative and I don't say an EU representative, I'm going to be called an NA bias caster, which I'll always be called because I live in North America and I am North American. So I guess, whatever. But my ultimate thought and my bold prediction is that G2 Esports will actually win HRX. And here's why. I think that they have absolutely no more time in the tank. These old grumpy farts and Cuss and Doe, I love you guys, but it's been a long time coming. They've been here since the beginning. They got to get their big ship. I think if you look at this HRX and you see all the work they put in, the success they've had, the troubles at LAN, finally putting this roster together, and they get there in this November now. I kept seeing January, and they lose. Look at that. Look at what you got to think about. It's a year until I can do that again. For guys who have already been in this scene for 3 years, that's a long time coming. I think they're going to put together their best chance, their dream run this time. And so that's going to be my bold prediction. And my EU, just so people don't get mad at me, I'm going to say Fnatic are actually going to take it this time. If it's a European team, I'm going to say Fnatic.
Those are 2 choices that I actually did not expect. I was thinking
you
either you were going to go
it.
complete dark horse
I like Cinderella. I like
the nice and comfortable, but this is like that perfect.
Well, I think G2 fits right in there. It would still be a Cinderella story.
It would. It would.
But
G2
it
wouldn't
completely throw you off guard. I mean, they had a pretty incredible summer split leading up. They qualified stronger than I think ever, right? They put their foot down and said, we are going to dominate most of our matchups. Granted, Rock Monkey wasn't there for one of the bigger matchups in NA, but overall, they looked more dominant than they ever have. They continue down this path of, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, instead of like, all right, we need Cuss to do this week. Now we're just going to be flip-flopping the whole split. We still qualify first, right? But you got to specialize your labor here, I think, if you want to really have a chance.
Who do you think?
G2.
Who do you think has it?
I was going to say G2 as well for North America. I'll go Na'Vi for EU here.
Yeah.
I don't think it's time for NIP to upset the world.
Yeah, that was going to be my life. Here, I want to take a hot take right now. NIP.
No, I don't think they're quite ready, but Na'Vi.
It's Mouse Sports. We already have the script. We've been writing it for months.
We've got the 2-time now. I want to make it a
right here.
here.
This is the Mouse Sports script, by the way. I love you guys, but it's not quite big. Not big enough yet. Yeah.
Mostly Blink. But I think Spunky, 3 rings would look amazing on him, right?
Yeah.
I want to see that happen. I think it's really tough for that to happen as well. So
it's going to get uncomfortable.
Might as well go for it while it's teed up, I guess.
All right, so if G2 Esports gets it, we get a real big celebration going on. If it's Na'Vi, you basically get it. If it's Fnatic, I get it. Solo. And Gore, I mean, before we move, you have to say a name. A team.
Well, if we're all giving NAEU, my main one, the one that was coming to my head, was going to be Na'Vi because, I mean, they've been winning. They won
Na'Vi.
PWC, they won International LAN, and then we're coming up to another International LAN. They're usually the ones that they just have the track record at this point. But
who's your
I want to say Splice. Only because I think it'd be hilarious.
Just keep it black and yellow.
Yeah, exactly.
Realistically,
yellow,
I'm leaning a little bit more towards Envy because I think they are genuinely a team that has that ability. Definitely. And I realize that it might just be because Na'Vi and Envy sound very similar, but it's also just the skill that they've had so far.
Definitely.
But overall, that's who I guess we think. We gave 6 teams. I expected 3, but there's 6 that some melding over G2 and Na'Vi being, I think, favored overall. But we actually have a representative from G2 to be able to come in, have an interview right before the split goes live. It's going to be their coach, Kyle. So let's go ahead and listen to see what he has to say about this upcoming split.
What are the first steps that you take after you see a massive balance update like 1.4?
Get into it. There's no way to do it. These guys love the game. They love changes. And half of our team is support players. So when the patch dropped, we were all like, they were like, oh shit, can't say that. We got to get in this quick. So they kind of just jumped right into it, man. There was no between. I woke up and everybody was like on it. So they were there for the PTS. They were there when it drops. And it's just custom games, quick play, like that. Just learning as much as we can. I think I think like 90% of the time it was spent in custom games, like 2v2, like trying all this new stuff and trying to tweak all these cool little like tricks and stuff like that. But yeah, these guys were on it before I was, and they usually are. This is more their patch than it was mine. I'm a support player, but this was more their thing. So no, it's.
So does everyone kind of do an equal share of the investigating and the working it out? Does everyone kind of play something different? You guys congregate and talk about it, or is it like you know Evil Eye and Bodies? They're going to go off. They're going to play Androxus and try those changes. Cuss and Vex are going to play around with the support. So does everyone kind of get involved and sort of give their point of view?
Vex sticks with the supports. Cuss just. Everything. I think he woke up one time from sleep and was like, I had a dream. This is the meta we're running. And I was like, what? What? It's like, we're doing this. This is gonna work. This is gonna work. And then like I'll come down and be like, hey, we should try this or we should do that. And I don't know, it kind of feels like everybody has like a point, because I mean everybody else has seen it. I'm gonna say we're the most diverse team here. Everybody plays everything, and
I think it's hard to argue that, right? You know, you
yeah.
have shown time after time, event after event, that you're not afraid to really pull anything out. When it looks good on paper, it's just a matter of execution.
I think that's great. No, I think that's great for when things like when patches like this drop, because everybody kind of plays everything. So everybody has like their hand in each champion. So when you take 5 people and they all got different ideas on how you should do it, put it in one big circle. And then, you know what I mean? So
let me ask
I think it's very nice.
Is this the time that you need to go hard, do a ton of homework, and attack and try and close the gap between, you know, Splice and Renegades and, you know, you guys up at the top?
Definitely, 100%, because most of these patches, they change meta, and what that does is basically, we've said this since like the day one we've been playing Paladins, if you can't adapt to a meta, your team's going to fall behind. And the team has to do that, right? There's no instant like adapt. They have to just play, right? So every team's pretty much on equal playing grounds, aside from their set skills they've already, you know, came up with. So jumping on a patch and like learning how to play it before another team does, wins lands. Like you can look at lands like DreamHack. You can look at what is it? Last land was Willow Lian, and that was like huge. And I think it was Envy. I think Envy was the one that jumped on that first, and they found out like it was huge against like Willow, because Willow ended up being big. DreamHack like a year ago was like the Chinese found out about it. Remember how Chinese was there was like Torval or whatever. I think it's essentially who finds that meta and who jumps on that train and like learns it really well. And some people don't even pick up on the meta, like they don't even find it. And Chinese people, they were the first ones, and like then G2 or Cryptic at the time, they were like, oh, this is ours now, we're taking this. And so they took it, made it their own, and then they beat the Chinese team. So I think it comes down to that. You have to really learn the patch when it first comes out, and some people don't learn it until land comes. So I mean, it's just how it is.
Kyle, thank you so much for joining me, buddy. It's always good.
Hey, no problem. It's good talking to you, Nick. Hope you're doing well, man.
I'm not sure about you guys, but I think G2 is the team I'm most excited to see in the playground that is 1.4. With all the changes, especially that happen to supports, I want to know what exactly they're going to be running.
Yeah, I mean, we've always seen them kind of be experimental. So I would expect the same thing, especially with all of these random kind of adjustments to legendaries and talents, and then also abilities. So I think the support patch is going to be good for G2. Could be further reason why they are HRX champions. I don't know. We're going a little early, but some hot takes need to be taken.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to see them play a little bit later this week, but with the schedule overall for week 1, there's a couple of matchups I think that are going to be very key later on. I had mentioned, you know, Fnatic versus Na'Vi, G2 versus Envy I think is going to be a big one, and then a couple of these that I don't know if I would call them must-wins as much as I would say something that teams need to feel comfortable, especially with all the roster swaps that just happened in Europe. But the very first one, we actually get to see a couple of those roster swaps and pickups come through with NIP versus Fnatic.
I mean, it's a must-win, Nick. I think it's a must-win for both teams. NIP needs to get their rhythm back, and they need to show they can beat a top team if they're going to make it to top 3, 2, or 1. Fnatic also, I mean, coming off your loss, which was devastating in the finals, and then also losing your opening game against a team that's consistently been beat by you, that would be a really crusher.
You've got two things kind of working for NIP this time around, is that you've got the massive patch, which allows a team like NIP to kind of make strides towards Fnatic, a team they've traditionally not been able to touch online for the most part, and the pressure being alleviated by now. We're taking 3 teams instead of 2, so it feels like well, objectively, the must-win games are a little bit further out in the split now because of that. So NIP do have some room to work with, I think, this week against Fnatic.
And this is one of those instances, and I think we had kind of mentioned this earlier when we were talking about Fnatic, but it's one of those moments that you kind of have to win just because you need to keep your own cool, I guess, under wraps. You need to be prepared for it. But at the same time, if you win, no one's really surprised. No one's like necessarily rooting for you. They're not really rooting against you. It's just like, yeah, cool, have fun. You're winning again.
We've been saying a lot of risk-reward yesterday, and today it means just as much because there's really no real reward for winning a game you should win, but it's all risk. That's why it's underdog story. Sometimes they just have everything to gain, nothing to lose, and vice versa. That's why it can be a tough matchup to keep your mind in.
And being able to learn maybe a little bit from this, whether NIP win or lose, they will be going again next after that towards Mouse Sports, which is going to be interesting. Koa playing up against his former teammates, but we had mentioned Cruncy picked up from Clown Fiesta. Mouse has picked up Alex and Bolka, both from Clown Fiesta as well. So that's 3 out of 5 members of that team that came to LAN. So if you're a PGS team, keep track of that coming into the PPL and being able to play day 1.
I mean, Alex was good on LAN, and we noticed that. The biggest thing we noticed was Alex had a presence, he was good, and he was performing well with confidence. And so adding that to Mouse, I think, is something they need. They need that, and it will be nice to see them perform, especially former teammates, and see how that interaction of knowing each other's playstyles actually ends up affecting that matchup.
This is going to be really exciting to win. I think it's traditionally and historically going to go and point towards NIP, but with all the changes made on both sides, a lot of these matchups this week become more interesting.
So if there was one team out of this, like you said, leaning a little bit more towards NIP, and I feel like that's kind of like going to be the grand scheme. This first week, especially going off of past information, we're going to be leaning, I think, more towards where we've historically seen these teams. But I think this is the time for surprises to come through, and that actually leads us into this next set perfectly because it's going to be G2 versus SK with their new pickups. Do you think SK has a chance, or is this just kind of throwing them straight to the wolves?
I think this is throwing them straight into the wolves, into the deep end. This is a rough matchup to start for SK, especially with a new roster.
It sucks to, I think, start the split with this one. Where you just, you're probably going to get the crap kicked out of you, and then it doesn't get much easier in their next matchup either. But they do at least have that doubleheader going for them, where they get to play a little bit before they have to go to their second matchup. Not much, but it's something.
It's rough because the first game is almost one where most people would consider unwinnable at this point because of just the consistency with G2's performance. But then you look at Renegades, and this is a must-win game. You have to beat this team if you're fighting for that 3rd spot. But if you lose off the bat to G2, that is a bad. That's an 0-2 start in your first week. That is not where you want to be, especially if you're fighting for a 3rd seed. You know the teams are going to have their 0-2 weeks, week 3 or 4, but it's like in PKs in soccer. If you go first, you put the pressure sometimes on, and sometimes you put it on the other team if you score. Sometimes you put it on yourself if you miss, and that's the biggest thing. They can't miss too big here.
Like you said, looking at the score, if you go 0-2, you don't have a single win coming out of this week. Weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, you have to perform as time goes on. And that means that later there's a point where you're facing G2 again, and that game becomes a must-win, and that's not necessarily impossible, but going to be very difficult.
All right, when you're losing those games against the Renegades, against Splice, as SK, you then put it on yourself to where you have to beat G2 or Envy at some point during the split.
So with Renegades sticking together, you guys, I want to say, are leaning more towards them?
Yep.
Okay. Just making sure as we go forward. But the next one, and again, I think we're looking at mirrors, so you'll
I
see
actually think SK will be able to take that second game.
You be?
I do. That's what I'm going to go for.
Awesome.
I think they're going to lose G2 pretty badly, though.
Do you think that losing to G2 is
But we can move on. But I think that SK is going to take that second game because I know we're running out of time.
I'm kind of curious about their mentality, but like you said, we have time. We have a time limit. PGS is starting right after this, so we do have to actually get there. I guess I'll move into the next one. Navi versus Fnatic. It's the matchup that we see every single week one, every single time it goes towards the end. Is this going to make a big difference? Is Fnatic going to win? Is Navi going to win? Does it really matter?
I think Navi could take this one. There is enough changing just in the game at base for a team like Navi, who does a lot of homework and I think are a very prepared squad. They could absolutely take this over Fnatic. There's so much going on, so much different. We'll have to see what ends up shaking out to be the most. I don't know if how many supports were changed. I still don't think they'll be the biggest or centerpiece of overall what shakes out of 1.4.
This is the opposite doubleheader, and for Virtus Pro, this is rough because Navi are coming into this game on. It's like, this is LAN potential. This is the person we've seen at every finals almost that we've had. So we have to have everyone ready. These guys are getting sleep. They're eating right there. I mean, it's all about this Fnatic matchup today because they know that could determine first place. This game afterwards against Virtus Pro, I mean, after these guys are warmed up, I feel a little bit scared. But it's good that we're going to be able to see Elven Path, Purdo, and Chipa against a tested roster. And that, to me, is going to give us a lot of information about Virtus Pro heading into the season. Can Purdo actually make some moves? Will Chipa step up out of that just role of being around Purdo very often, filling that kind of role squad for a team, and actually maybe be a game changer.
Yeah, being a role player versus, like, he used to be a star player for D69. He used to be one of the most feared EVs in the game, right? So he has that in him, and we'll have to see. Maybe that's what they return to. Maybe that's the shift that they want to make coming off of NIP to bring them back to that former glory, right? And that's still 3 big names in the kill feed. I think this is probably coming up on, like, one of the last splits where that name is going to mean anything unless they win big.
And this is a must-win for Na'Vi, not Virtus Pro, because if they drop a game to Virtus Pro here, that's going to be rough for their first place hopes.
Virtus Pro has been the team to give them like the most trouble overall, always being able to just find some random game, not necessarily taking the set, but just being able to push it to 4 when it shouldn't be. I'm kind of curious as to see what they're going to have. But
I mean, they've always been known for the cheese, right? I'll be curious to see if they're able to discover any new stinky cheese in this patch.
I think that's what's hurt them the most. Just very quickly, get rid of the cheese. Stop doing something weird.
Cut the cheese?
See, because when you have a really wacky strategy, I mean, I'm being honest, if you have a really wacky strategy and you lose so badly, is it your players or is it your strategy? How can you tell?
I mean, at this point, you've gone through enough players that you have to assume it's still the strategy that
they keep doing the strategy. Who cares? You might be able to put 5 of those best players in the PPL and do that wacky strategy and lose. 4 tanks might lose to anybody.
It should.
But what I'm saying is
you
put the best players on 4 tanks, you might still lose that game. So how do you know where is the core of your issue? You have to start playing some regular Paladins first, then start experimenting with some confidence a little bit later on.
Well, being able to move on, we have couple more matches, just 2 more for the week. It's Friday, Envy doubleheader, first one against G2, and I think as far as Envy and Fnatic go, that's always the one that we kind of expected could go either way. I think this is the other one that really could go either way.
Yeah, I mean, G2 have historically been beating them.
This is going to be good.
They set the pace because Rock Monkey was on vacation and Dethroner had to eventually sub in for him, so they kind of got that free win going into week 1, which sets the pace, right? You then Envy in the next time they play in week 5, they come in kind of like with tails between their legs because they know they got smoked last time, right? That's not going to be the case this time. Again, just because of the same kind of conversation between Na'Vi and Fnatic, there's enough changing in the game. And like Kyle even said in his interview, right? Envy were the guys that kind of found the Leon Willow thing going into that land. So they are guys that are not afraid to dig a little bit deeper and really find something that hasn't worked before that can work and pull a lot of weight for them now.
And it's if plays like this are happening all the time, and you're looking at this is against Fnatic. If Vex is taking down damage dealers by himself, staying alive, and still healing in that process, there's going to be problems for anybody that they face, let alone Envy, and let alone a top European team. If G2 play at their best, this is a team that can win it all. But I am definitely waiting for Rock Monkey to pull the Ying back out, which he promised us. He did it first week, and he said, I'll be back. I'm waiting, Rock. Where is it? Where's your Ying?
He's getting called out.
I don't know.
He's got to bring it out to pull it out. But with the way
what
things
are you talking
are going,
about, Gore? Don't take that out of context, please. Soundbite that, somebody.
Moving to the next one. It's gonna be,
you got to take it out to pull it out? Okay.
Yeah.
Good
that
to know.
wasn't exactly what I was
take
trying
it out
to
to pull
say,
it out.
but it's going to be the phrase that did.
Hey, man.
Either way, Envy versus Splice.
Not touching that. Envy versus Splice. You're right, Gore.
This one I think is going to be a lot more interesting than I think it would have been in the past. In the past, I would have said this. We don't even need to talk about it. But I think with the way Splice was playing at the end of the split, do you think they have a chance, or do you think this is still going to be a wash?
No, I think Envy will take this one pretty handily, the same way I expect kind of the earlier one with, you know, unfortunately NIP and Mouse. I think that we're going to see Envy have a really strong day today. I mean, if they don't win against G2, I think it'll be close. And I think that Splice, this is, again, a rough matchup for them going into a team that's tested, playing their number 1, number 2 competitor. It's going to be warmed up, and then it's going to face them afterwards when they have everything to prove. It's just a tough start for Splice, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to give Envy any other kind of shake than that. Splice, with how new they were last split, they still have a lot of growing and figuring out to do, right? So it's hard to get a read on them as well. I think it's up to them and how much homework they've done over the course of the down season.
That's true.
Well, that's going to be overall PPL Week 1. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting matchups, but there are a lot of must-wins for some of these teams. Whether or not they are actually going to be able to hit that third-place spot is really the big question mark. So you're going to keep eyes on like SK, on Splice, as well as just some of the teams over in Europe. But as you've noticed, there's someone different sitting here. There's someone different sitting there, because I think we had to drag you in.
That's true.
Had to move me over.
That's true.
That's because Gabby decided to leave us. But we do have a farewell video. I've heard mixed things about this video, so I don't know what the exact tone of it is, but it's in the spot of the meme video. So I'm really excited to see what it is. So I guess this is saying Gab bye.
Oh, we're showing it?
Oh, we're showing it.
I didn't know if we were going to show it or not.
Oh, we're showing it.
Have you seen it?
I have not.
Oh, this is going to be good.
I made the video yesterday.
Ooh, let's take a look.
Are our mics going to be live?
No.
Okay.
It's a fan vote. And Miss Gabriella La Tigress Devia Allen has something to say. This girl, she made it to the finals. No denial. It's been a tough trial. Some hefty competitions and down the Nile to join so back into the crocodiles. Or is it alligators? Leave that critique to the haters. Back on track, here to ask a little favor. A request for a moment, go back to the past, to the last episodes of the caster. Elim's gonna go any faster. Try the best not to turn to disaster. It said, mate. Come up to meet ya. Tell you I'm sorry. You don't know how lovely you are. I had to find you. Tell you I need you. Tell you we'll set you apart. Tell me secrets. Ask me questions. Oh, let's go back to the start. Run in circles, coming up tails, heads on the science apart. Nobody said it was easy.
I'm sorry, but you don't act like you've been there before. Is this the first time you're winning something?
Nobody said it was easy. No one ever said it'd be so hard. Oh, take me back to the start.
I love the specification of she's not dead, just in case you didn't realize. She is not dead. She just moved and has now been hosting other things.
When you slap a black and white filter on there, you got to make some clarifications.
As a man whose favorite band is Coldplay, as much as I love Gabby, that hurt me a little bit.
Just a little bit?
It's just a little. This is an A minor when that needed to be an A. I love it, though. I really loved Gabby's commitment to being a part of this squad, and she's a great professional, and that's one thing that you know when you work with Gabby from the behind the scenes aspect of it. She puts the work in, and she is going to have a great career. We hope to work with her again. She gave us a lot of funny moments like that, so I'm glad to see that video made in her honor.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of dancing, always prepared, always smiling. Gabby's always a pleasure to be around.
I'm kind of curious as to what the meme videos from this point on are going to be, because most of the
they're
clips
you, buddy.
were always
Hey, you got to take it out to put it out.
Me and her dancing. So now I'm kind of curious as to what exactly is going to be, because I mean, I guess I could keep on dancing, but it's going to be awkward when no one joins me.
If Gore moves on someday and gets his own video, you got to take it out to put it out. It's going to be like
it's the first and the only thing.
The farewell. You got to take it out to put it out, folks.
Gore out. Yeah, Gore out.
2018.
I can't wait. I'm very, very happy.
It's actually my campaign line. We were talking about running for president earlier. That's what I'm running on.
Listen, it's better than some campaign lines I've heard.
Well, we have top plays as well of things that we've seen in the past. This one's actually going to be Rock Monkey, which, I mean, big surprise, Rock Monkey being able to make a top play. But he's going to be playing Leon, which is something I still expect we're going to see out of him in the future.
No, we're going to see some Yang. We are.
One can only hope.
Cool. So watch it. He gets thrown off the map here. Still has the presence of mind to grace his way back in.
Wow.
To lay down the law with his dying breath. So I think you can apply your tagline fairly well to that clip.
You got to take it out to put it out.
What's so good is that he actually ended up not really needing to slide. He could have just enlightenment from there, but I love that his instincts were on his movement skill. That's what you need to have.
And admittedly, I mean, we've seen this, a lot of that distance, he almost made it back. If he had been able to hit that just a little bit faster, he might have been able to sneak through there. But it was unfortunate for him that he fell down. So now, moving on towards number 2.
Okay.
I didn't hear what it was.
Awesome. Hey, I can't wait to see it.
We'll roll it up. More Leon.
Wow.
I mean, she was such a big part of the event, right? The Willow Leon. So much of it goes into this character being able to deal with that Willow. It's kind of a fun, interesting sort of back and forth to watch those two characters have in the event.
And you know what? I love that he gets the Quadra there, and it's in a big moment.
Right.
Misses a couple of things. I love Phoenix. He's a great Leon.
But that's what Leon
They gave him that one.
Allows you to do.
He missed a couple of things.
They could have given him the Penta, too, man. That was really,
They could have given him the Penta. But, these guys, they want the screen time.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things, especially with this team, and I'm kind of curious because Phoenix went from playing almost only frontline to all of a sudden now, hey, here's Cassie, here's Leon, you're being pushed out to play that. So I'd say finding a Quadra is still something that is impressive overall, but I think it's more impressive when you apply a Quadra over to Drogoz with a bigger switch up, which was Mutu going from like Androxus to now being able to play the Dragon.
Well, he's everyone says this, but Mutu started out playing a lot of Drogoz as well. He's not unfamiliar with this champion, and it shows because when you have mechanics of a champion that are learned, like an Eevee, like a Drogoz, they don't leave you. You spend a lot of time learning them and making them your muscle memory, and you can hit those things with your eyes closed.
Then you get back on the bike.
Yeah, it's no problem right there. Mutu does it all.
So now we have our top fail, which I always love these just because we always tend to get something silly, either someone jumping down the well or falling off the ledge, and I feel like this one, again, is someone falling off of a map just with the way things go. I think Ascension Peak is more prone to this than any other map.
Uh-oh.
But he almost got back up there,
but
too.
But how? Did he get knocked back? How did he even... Did he just jump over it?
No, I think he got disengaged.
I think that was a disengage,
Oh, I was going to say, it had to be something. Well, that's just a good play from Cassie.
And, it's always a little bit sweeter when you give him the hope of, like, letting him cling onto the rocks on the way down. That was very dramatic, Rubu. Just rip the Band-Aid off. Get it over with, son.
Let it happen. Just dash into the distance. Be like, I've done it. I'm leaving this place behind.
Go into the clouds.
Yeah.
But we do have, I guess now, still a time limit, 10:51. So we have about 9 minutes until the PGS starts, but something that we won't get to see until next week until it's actually available.
I can't wait.
We have Koga, who's going to be available next week. He's been in the game for a little bit. Initial thoughts on him other than what we saw last week?
Listen, I've done a lot of Koga playing. I've made videos on 3 out of 4 of his legendaries, or his talents now that they're called, because we're in the new age of Paladins. He is one of the only champions I can unequivocally say I don't know what players are going to prioritize as far as a talent for him. I think he has 2 legitimate high-level pro options, and I think he has a third if someone wants to get fancy.
If they want to, if they want to get fancy, that's the key. I think Adrenaline Junkie is going to be the safer option here from what I've seen. But you look at
Master of Arms,
Master of Arms coming here with Swiper. There
Genos?
is definitely room to work with Koga, and I think it's going to be a lot of interesting things coming out and a lot of fun to watch.
Genos with Trigger Happy, one of his most winning cards, and Design sneaked that into me, by the way. And they also, it applies to lifesteal. It applies to everything you get from a Genos Astral Mark. I think a triple DPS is going to be that much more valuable with a Master of Arms Koga that just never stops firing. Can't wait to see it happen. I can't wait to see what these guys do.
I'm curious to see how he's going to impact picks and bans, because we did see a few bans from him. I think he was like just kind of that forced ban of we can't deal with him. He cannot be allowed to play, so we just can't deal with it. Or first pick every single game, meaning able to leave open Khan or Makoa or whatever happens to make it through. That's something that we get to look forward to next week when he's going to be played, because today's the 4th, so he's available starting tomorrow, but most of these games are going to be filled out for the rest of the week without him.
Can't wait.
So you'll start seeing that Monday. And what we're going to right after this, we have the Paladins Global Series, and the format has changed a little bit for anyone who hasn't been keeping track of it. It's now 4 teams from every single region doing round-robin play. It's going to be best of 3s. We're going to show every single set that we have today, as well as every day, I guess, going into the future, where a lot of these teams are still vying for their first spot. I think it's top 2 in North America and EU, but number 1 from every other region to still come to HRX.
Yep, and this is really cool for these guys to get a little bit more consistent play. Think of it as just like the baby PPO. Right, you got a little bit less teams, they play a little bit less games, but overall you still get to have that consistency and that feel going across a couple of weeks.
I mean, I think it's really big because we've seen teams in the past, specifically what was Nocturnes, then Burrito, and it's now, I think, Free Agent Boys being able to come through and play. That's who it ended up being.
I was looking at the LATAM names and I was like,
They're
gotta be the
I mean, and that is when you look at the PGS here, you could see the bigger picture where we see a lot of the teams that we expect to win. Blazing Asaras, Clown Fiesta coming in through from Europe, Space Station Gaming obviously taking their victory in Brazil, Kanga doing Oceania things that they've always done. Really, North America, Big Egos and Ferocity, and also Ba and Hyso Florx were really close sets, really close games.
Just gonna gloss over Despacito too.
Well, you know, unfortunately, it wasn't as big a hit as the first one. Let's just put it that way, although they get their victory. But then free agent boys, Hecate was supposed to be gone. He's back. We don't know the full story, but it's exciting to see in this PGS. Will he be back? Was that a week 1 thing? Will he be still playing, even though he said he's retiring on a twit longer? Those seem to be official in esports.
I mean, maybe he's just like helping them out till they find a replacement or something. Not really sure.
Yeah, help us out the whole split, Hecate, please.
You know, just help us win Worlds, and then you can go do whatever you need to do.
Then just help us next season.
Yeah, exactly.
Until we find someone.
Keep signing up. As long as you stay without a sponsor,
What's
you know,
happening?
we truly
Is Crimson the mastermind of this? He's just tactically realizing, here's how we keep Hecate. All right.
But we do, I think, have actually the schedule for week number 2. There's actually a lot of matchups. I believe I saw Space Station tweeting about today, talking about how they actually have a pretty big matchup coming forward. But like you had said, this is a lot like PPL Junior, where you're going to come through, and a lot of these teams that are coming to HRX, but they're not quite getting those wins. This is where their region gets a lot more practice against them regularly.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the purpose of this global series, right? We've had so many players at this point called up to the PPL.
Yeah.
So this is where you want to make an impact, and I think you can really follow a lot of interesting storylines that started here. So it's something you really want to take seriously, and this is absolutely an avenue that can take you to the highest echelon of Paladins esports.
There is always a team in the PPL who is not doing well and who is looking for replacements. There is really always a team in the PGS who is ending up able to show up at LAN and get some great exposure. Those two things have always, in my opinion, I've seen somebody from the PGS go to the PPL after every LAN or every split. And that is something that means thousands of dollars to you, changing your career forever. Yeah. The PGS is a big deal. It's PPL Junior, but not really. It's really the PPL. It's your chance to be in the PPL.
I mean, just look at Clown Fiesta. I'm actually excited to see what their roster is because they lost 3 of their members to the PPL for this split, so they're bringing in a couple more people to try and fill that role and still make it to the next LAN, but that's just a big testament from that one team making it to LAN, having one very good performance, and being able to get picked up from there. But speaking of the PGS, we actually have to go cast that relatively soon, so if you do stay tuned, we're actually going to have a video showing Nicholas Bayshore, our nice community guy for Paladins Esports, going and getting a Paladins tattoo, which was part of the Make-A-Wish, the charity goal that we had earlier on this year when you got your haircut. Tattoos was also a part of that. Avrin's video, I believe, has already been shown, so now we have his to debut just now. We're going to go get ready for the PGS.
See ya.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Nicholas Bayshore, Paladins Esports Community Manager.
I'm Avrin Maros, Smite Esports Community Manager.
And as you might know, earlier this year in May, we worked in tandem with Hi-Rez here at Skillshot for Spring Fling.
We raised over $100,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and one of our donation goals for this event was getting tattoos for the 2 of us.
And so now we're going to take you on that journey with us as we head up to Knoxville, Tennessee to get those both fulfilled.
You ready to rock?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So we're here in Knoxville, Tennessee at Ambition Tattoo to go ahead and get these Paladins and Smite tattoos done.
You ready to meet the artist?
I think I am. How's it going, buddy?
Going good, how are you?
Good to see you, man.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Love the shirt.
Thanks!
Perfectly on brand. It's solid stuff. So I hear you're a big Smite Paladins fan.
Oh yeah.
Been playing for a while?
Oh yeah, quite a while.
Good old beta days?
Yeah, Xbox beta.
Ready to get started with the Capri and Furia tattoos?
Oh yeah, super excited.
Alright, let's get on with it.
I first started doing tattooing for a job right at the end of my college career. Originally going to school for biochemical engineering, decided that I hated my entire life doing that. And I quickly changed my degree over to studio arts. I was going to be an art teacher. I was starting to hang out and get tattooed because I have a huge fear of needles. I wanted to try to get past that. So when I started getting tattooed, I was very interested in the tattoo world. 1, because it was a fear of mine, and 2, because I've been doing art my entire life. And with color blindness, I don't have to trick myself into thinking what I see. It's more knowing what I'm doing. It allows me to rely more highly on color theory and off the things that I know rather than the things that I think. And so with color theory and proper application from my art studies, I can do those things without tricking myself based on what I think I see.
was really interesting because it came at that time where with Paladins I've been working on the game on the dev team for a while, and so for me it was one of those things where I wanted to do something that commemorated like the launch of Paladins because we came out of beta, which was super exciting, but also do something that I really felt a personal connection with. And so with Furia, she was the definition of launch. It was our big launch champion, and she is fantastic. But the one thing I love about her too is she's very protective, right? And so her whole lore story revolves around her trying to protect her sister, which is why she became who she is. And so for me, my sister's actually really important to me. We don't get along all the time, but at the same time, it's something that I always feel like I gotta help my sister out and protect my sister, and she feels the same way about me. And so that was kind of a really cool just tie-in that did everything together. Plus, let's be honest, Fury looks awesome.
She does.